Okay, so last week, I think it was last week, I did a whole video, maybe 2 weeks ago, I did a whole video about the Osceola School Board in Florida because they were considering bringing religious chaplains into their schools. And I'm not, because I already made a video about it, I'm not going to rehash every single bit about it. But here's the gist of the story in case you missed it. Basically, Florida passed a law like earlier this year allowing untrained Christian chaplains to volunteer in public schools, essentially as substitutes for trained social workers and counselors. And parents would have to give their kids permission to see those chaplains, and the chaplains would have to pass a background check, but that's about it. Like the goal was clear, even if it was unstated. Republicans wanted Christian chaplains in schools, which would be horrible for LGBTQ students along with kids who are not professing Christians, because their parents are going to be like, yeah, go see a chaplain if something's up. What if you're a gay kid and your parents are like, you need to see somebody at school? Let's send you to the Christian chaplain who's there. Like, you could see how that could end very badly. So the bill did not specify that the chaplains had to be Christians, but it was obvious these were going to be almost all Christian chaplains. It did not help that Governor Ron DeSantis, who signed the bill at an Osceola public school, announced that Satanists would not be allowed to participate. He said, the quote, that is not a religion. That is not qualifying to be able to participate in this. And so now, with the school year starting, all these public school districts in Florida have to decide, do we want to allow chaplains into our schools? Because if we do that, now that the state has given us permission to do that, if we do that, we need policies. We need some sort of rules that all these people have to follow. And they weren't quite sure what to do. And so, like a couple weeks ago, the DeSantis administration released a model policy, a draft template, if you will, that school districts could use. But that policy was pretty messed up, the draft one, because it seemed to exclude religious minorities. Like it suggested chaplains could be required to have a graduate degree in counseling or theology and years of experience, which are things that Christians might be able to get. But if you're a religious minority that doesn't have the infrastructure, or you're a Satanist, you probably don't have those things. So it also gave principals veto power over individual chaplains if they didn't like fit with the vibe of your school. And so now the principal gets to decide which religions are okay and which ones are not. So you could see there were some constitutional problems if you just copied and pasted the model policy that Florida's Republican officials were giving. So if Satanists or humanists volunteered as chaplains, the principal said no to them. I mean, the lawsuits practically wrote themselves. So last time I made a video about this, it was after humanists and Satanists spoke out at a school board meeting saying this is a problem waiting to happen. You don't need chaplains in schools, not just because you don't need chaplains. You already have good hired staffers trained to do this, but because if you pass a policy that excludes us, we will sue you. And so a couple weeks ago, the Osceola School Board voted 3-2 to delay a real vote on this issue. They said, let's think about this some more. Let's take a look at the policy we want to adopt because maybe we need to make some changes to it. And that was good news that they delayed it. So the delay said, we will discuss this again at the next board meeting. Well, this week was the next board meeting. And the thing is, a lot of the people who spoke a couple of weeks ago, they were speaking directly to a guy named John Arguello. I think that's how you pronounce it, maybe Arguello. But he was the guy, the member of the board who was really pushing for the chaplaincy program. And this week, that is what happened again. Everyone making public comments seemed to direct their thoughts at one dude because he was the guy pushing to get Christian chaplains in schools. At the previous meeting, Arguello said, he falsely said, kids needed chaplains because they were supposedly telling adults, I want to be chemically castrated because I'm a transgender ideologist, which is not a thing they say. And then he claimed his fellow board members, the heathen liberals, quote, would pay for the Uber to send that student to go to the clinic. Like, he's just rubbing everybody the wrong way by lying about all this. And that's why they voted to delay this vote. And he insisted all these people against me, they're all allying themselves with the Satanic Temple, which they were not. I want to show you what he did this week, though, because the public comments were roughly along those same lines. People were telling the board, don't do it. We might sue. This is a bad idea. It's bad for our kids. And here's the issue they were arguing. What Arguello was pushing this time was not let's adopt a policy because they don't have a policy yet. He was saying let's form a committee to hash out all these concerns. And in 6 weeks, they will report back to us. They will say, here's the policy our district should adopt. And then we can vote on that policy. So right now they're talking about should we form a committee? And he made clear over the course of his comments that all he cared about was Jesus and it would not go well. So I want to show you part one of what he said to some of these critics in the audience after the public comments, and then we'll talk about it.
This is a very important issue, and it should not be a discussion that happens based on lies. And the opposition to this program is basing so much of their opposition on lies and fear. That's how you know. This judge just came up here and lied about what the program would do in terms of a legal aspect, okay? There's nobody trying to proselytize your child because they can't even see a chaplain without permission of the parent, okay, period. That's right. So your child has to go and seek it out, and the parent has to provide permission. Now, I know that there's some people on the opposition side, they don't like it when you talk to your parents. Thank you. And that's not a positive thing. Any psychiatrist that can come here and talk about the damage that this may cause is absolutely ridiculous. It's the same as the doctor that came here during COVID and said that if you didn't mask your child, you didn't love your child. It's just as ridiculous.
Just as ridiculous. So what did we get there? He said all the opponents are basing their criticisms on lies and fear. No, they were pretty much telling you what has happened in other places where they have had chaplains in the building. He also argued some critics didn't like it when you talk to your parents, not realizing sometimes the parents are the bad people. He also tried to discredit professional psychologists who spoke out against the policy by comparing them to a doctor who said, if you don't put a face mask on your child, you may not love your child. And look, I don't know what that psychologist said. That's kind of a mean way of putting it. But also during the pandemic, after in late 2020, I believe, when people were starting to slowly return to school, but maybe before the vaccines were available, we knew face masks were saving lives and that you needed a face mask. It was the only safe way to get strangers kind of together in the same building. And we knew that. And that is still true today. If you are around people who may be coughing, who may be spreading an airborne disease, face masks do save lives. That's how the science works. Anyway, so this guy's just railing against all of that. And then after he said all that, one of the other board members was like, the hell are you talking about? The people who are speaking actually make a lot of sense. We don't need chaplains. And after he spoke, Arguello spoke up again. And now he's just mad. Now he's like, oh, how dare you all speak out against me? And now we're just in insult comic mode. I want you to hear a little bit about what he said, but also watch a guy walk out of the school board as Arguello is talking. I think because he's just so mad about what he's hearing. Okay.
Okay. So you're right. You are a waste of oxygen. These kids are suffering pain right now, and you're part of the reason that they're feeling pain. So here's the fact. Here's the fact. Yeah, that's right. Because there's men of zero character in positions of leadership. That's why our kids are suffering. There's men who can't stand up, who have no spine. There's women who can't act like women. There's all kinds of problems just because the adults here are failing the kids. Okay? So here's the fact. The fact is this program doesn't do any of the things that they're saying. They're all lies, and that's a tool of the devil, and that's why they use it so well. And that's who's inspiring them. The fact is this would help our kids, and you guys say no. And then you think it's a coincidence that one guy is not here who voted for it every time, and then this guy changes his mind? Everybody here is for sale, and this is a facade. There's only one thing that's not a facade, and that's Jesus Christ. And you know what? I'm happy to fight for this.
Just complete dickish behavior. That guy is a DeSantis supporter There is another person on the board who's also a DeSantis appointee on that board. But here's the good news, and here's the cool update to all of this. After that conversation, they did take a vote on whether to form a committee to look into a policy. And even though one board member was gone, they ended up with a split vote. It was 2-2. And because these guys did not have a majority, that committee is not forming. So for now, the chaplains are not coming into those Osceola schools. That's good news. Doesn't mean the whole issue is dead. I don't know if this guy's going to try to bring it up again because the issues have not gone away. But for now, the critics won. The people who want what's best for children won. They are not getting Christian chaplains. They can, if parents want to send their kid to a chaplain, like go to a church on your own time, you know? I also want to point out it probably didn't help that the Satanic Temple sent a letter to the board. This is dated September 10th, but I want you to look at this paragraph right here. We are aware of your plans to form a committee to develop a school chaplain policy following significant community opposition. School board meeting. However, we are concerned that the formation of this committee, influenced by the continued public hysteria of one board member on Facebook, Arguello, may be an attempt to craft a policy with loopholes that selectively include certain religious groups while excluding others. We urge caution against any such maneuverings, which is, if this goes on to basically say, if you shut us out, we are coming after you. And this is one of the concerns. I don't think the school board was actually worried about satanic chaplains coming into their district. They were concerned about the legal liability they might face if they pass a bad policy and if they approve it. So that's what they're worried about. That's why right now this is not going anywhere. And I hope other school districts follow that lead because this is just a bad idea to begin with. Okay, let's stop there. Let's take any questions. What do we have? The make this dude answer for all the atrocities in the Bible. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is just me. I don't enjoy talking to these people. Like, it's one thing to say, let's throw some logic at the dude and see how he responds. But also, their answer is always the same. It's just God, God, God. It's a miracle. God didn't condone whatever happened in the Old Testament. Whatever. They can always make up answers to it. I prefer not answering. I prefer not having a conversation with those people in the first place because why am I wasting my time and energy? But also, the better answer is why is that guy on the school board? He needs to be voted out at the next possible opportunity. I am begging all of you. There are so many local races that no one ever runs for. Go run for local office. It makes a big difference, especially if you care about this stuff. It's always projection with the men of zero character, which is also the motto for the Republican Party. Of course. A conservative always has to bring up transgender, always. Yeah, I mean, these people can't get over it. It's the same talking points where like they think trans surgeries, gender affirming surgeries are happening in public schools. The same teachers who can't like afford markers and notebooks are somehow performing surgeries in their spare time during recess. I don't know how it works. It's the same lies about like kitty litter boxes in schools because all these kids are supposedly furries, and that's obviously not the real reason. It's because of school shootings. You can look it up, like kitty litter boxes. But yeah, they just pass around the same mix of lies all the time. And I don't know why they're so allergic to the actual responses or the actual truth about any of this stuff.